Hi everyone, thanks for joining us for the second episode of our new season of the Power to Build show, where we explore the most pressing and important topics at the intersections of home building and technology. As always, my name is Duran, and I'm happy to be joined by my co-host Brian.
Hey Duran, and to everyone listening, Duran, how have things been with you?
Good overall. I'm battling a little nasty cold here, but I'm gonna pull through, and we're gonna have a good episode. I've got a few random questions for you. Are you ready for them?
I hope so.
All right, here goes. Now, we're recording this with video now, so the secret's out. You're a pretty strong guy.
Okay.
Brian, how much can you bench press?
Oh, Duran, you're really putting me on the spot here. Well, let's see. The ego side of me wants to say 3 plates comfortably. That's 315 pounds. But in reality, it's 2 plates, so 225 comfortably.
Well, that sounds incredibly impressive to me. And okay, how about this one? Maybe not as prying, but how long does it take for you to commute into our office?
Trying to figure out where you're going with these questions here, but commute to office, I want to say on a good day, roughly 25 minutes.
Okay.
But on a day with traffic, which where I live and where our office is located, there's literally not a day that there's no traffic. So
Yeah.
I'd say roughly 35, 40 minutes.
Okay. I do think some of our listeners would take that commute, especially if they're in big cities. And all right, one more just here, but do you remember offhand how many wins the Toronto Raptors had last year?
That's an easy one, and it wasn't many. I don't recall the exact number, but that's probably a good thing. Honestly, I think last year everyone knew it was going to be a rebuilding season, and for years to come, expectations I don't think are super high. But we do have some talent and resources around us, so I think things will be fine. Last year we didn't have the best of year, but I think we'll bounce back from that.
All right. Well, I hope so. And I did do a little research here. It was 25, so not such an impressive one.
Yeah.
Not like impressing mark. Not so impressive, but I can only make comments on those things because I know how much I can lift, which is nowhere near as much. I know how far me and my friends commute to work, and well, I definitely know that 25 wins in basketball is nowhere near good enough. But if I were really trying to give you some valuable feedback, I would compliment you on lifting at least 50% more than the average person can. It'd probably be really nice for you to know that your commute is about 28 minutes shorter than the average person in the Toronto area. And while I'll still feel bad to know that the Toronto Raptors were 15 wins short of what the bottom ranked playoff team in the Eastern Conference wins every year.
I see where you're going with all this. I was a little bit confused starting off, but I think what we're going to be talking about today is the value of benchmarking data. And it truly is a challenge and opportunity for home builders. I spend a lot of time talking to home builders have tons and tons of data at their disposal, and the advanced ones are certainly collecting it well about their own businesses. But how exactly can they leverage it and benchmark it against the industry to make better business decisions? I think that's where so much value lies.
You're absolutely right. And that's the specialty of today's guest on the Power to Build show. His name is Seamus Mulroy, a project manager in data services who fortunately works with us here at Constellation HomeBuilder Systems. Seamus is an expert on our new innovative BuilderMetrix solution. And what he specializes in is working with home builders to bring their internal home building data to life and making it actionable for their business.
Yeah, our podcast is certainly not designed to be promotional, but with data being such a hot topic in home building businesses, everyone trying to stay competitive, find an edge, and even prepare for the new AI age, we felt Seamus is a guest that we really need to speak to.
You're definitely on track with that. So with that, let's take a really quick break, and then we'll be back with Seamus.
Sounds good.
Welcome back, everybody. And at this time, we're so excited to welcome today's special guest, Seamus Mulroy. Seamus, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great.
Seamus, before we jump into the heart of the interview, what can you tell our listeners as they're eager, about yourself, your role within Constellation since you joined?
Yeah. Pleasure to be here today. I'm really excited to be talking about data. It's something that I think has become a huge interest of mine over the last couple of years that I've worked with the company. But a little bit of background about myself. I work on the data services team here at Constellation. I really try to help builders work with a lot of the messy transactional data that they have in their ERP systems. Really just with the ultimate goal of trying to make sense of some of the data that they have in their system. Outside of Constellation, I'm an avid fisherman and outdoorsman, and I love to play hockey as well. So just a little bit of background about me, including the hockey stuff there. Although I don't think I can really consider myself much of a Leafs fan anymore after what's happened this previous playoffs. So
I guess who are you going for, Seamus?
I think I'd probably have to go for Edmonton, just support a Canadian team. But like I said, I feel like I've been a little bit disconnected after what's happened again with the Leafs. So
yeah. Well, this is such an interesting time, to be working in the data field with so much innovation happening around data in every single industry, right? I guess what excites you most about your work?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question. There's a number of ways I think we could answer that. I think one of the biggest things that I kind of alluded to earlier for me is just really helping builders throughout their data and analytics journey. We have the privilege of meeting with folks who have data teams of 20 to 30 people, and then folks who are just kind of entering the field for the first time. So, helping builders go through that is a pretty interesting exercise. And then just the data field itself has just grown exponentially over the last decade and even before that too. So there's a ton of different possibilities, whether we're talking about, the kind of current hot button issues with AI or just simply trying to figure out how to get a builder better reporting. There's a lot of really exciting stuff happening right now across the data field, and I think for home builders especially.
Definitely. Now, in your role, Seamus, you get a firsthand look at so much of that fascinating home building data and the trends. Now, on our last podcast episode, we got a chance to talk to John McManus of the Builders Daily, all about the impact of inflation and interest rates over the past few years. Overall, what are you seeing today compared to those past few years?
Yeah, well, it was a really interesting time for us to stand up a data services team and to start to capture all of this data with the effect of COVID on both job costs and trades as well. And so to kind of give a little bit of a snapshot of some of the data that we're seeing on the material side, we released our framing materials benchmark for the month of May most recently. Some of the things that were really interesting there. We're still seeing framing materials kind of normalize at a level that is roughly 40% higher than the end of 2019. So the material component of the cost structure has definitely come down and plateaued quite a bit. But when you use that reference back to 2019, you really realize how difficult the cost structure is for a lot of builders and how that's still a pretty consistent pressure for them to face. Outside of the materials side of the world too, our labor index has continued to kind of push upwards and has really highlighted a lot of that tightness in the labor market that we're seeing that I think, we were thinking may be alleviated by some of the higher sustained interest rates. The unemployment rate in the States, I think, is creeping up to 4%, but we're still seeing persistently high labor costs as well. So I think those are some of the kind of core things to note and trends that we're seeing in our data that we're talking about internally that we're finding interesting.
Very interesting for sure. And as you mentioned, I know that you did just finish doing a lot of work analyzing that very latest data from May. What stood out to you in terms of maybe certain regions that are bucking the industry trends and showing something different?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing that stood out to me was definitely the labor index there. Seeing it continue to climb was definitely surprising with the sustained interest rates. We did see some sale price decreases on a year-over-year basis for both the national level of Canada and the States as well. Houston saw some really large framing materials cost decreases year over year. I think they were just north of 40%. So some interesting data points there. I think it'll be really interesting to see how the sale price per foot benchmark changes with the announcement recently that the Bank of Canada has cut the rate up here. It'll be a very interesting benchmark to see how things are going to change, and if there's more demand that comes back onto the market with lower rates.
Absolutely.
No, for sure. Definitely good to see, things trending in the right direction for us. Seamus, like you, I get to spend, a lot of time talking with great home builders, and data is always a critical topic and comes up all the time. Most builders see it as an opportunity, but not every builder is sort of ready to tackle it. What's the most important advice, given that you work in data on a daily basis, right? What advice would you give to builders when it comes to their data?
Yeah, it's a really important question to think about. And I think one of the things that I would try to articulate to builders is to really try to be strategic about your data setup. And what I mean by that is, be disciplined and be thoughtful with the way that you're managing your data internally. One of the things that we do for a lot of builders is help them deal with that messiness and a lot of the buildup of some of that messiness that shows up in their data after years of using a system. So if you can focus on that, I think it would be very, very helpful and valuable for your business. And then I would also really urge builders to try to avoid kind of the paralysis by analysis, going back to that idea that there's so much different, there's so many different data sets, there's so many different ways you can look at data. Really be thoughtful with the business problems that you're trying to solve, and then work backwards to try and figure out how you can leverage data and reporting and analytics to support your decision making through some of those problems. I think those are both kind of good pieces of advice for builders that are thinking about reporting and analytics right now.
No, absolutely, Seamus. You make a lot of good points there. And having data is one thing, right? But really deciphering that is a whole nother topic. And before you joined us, we talked a bit about how benchmarking, is such a key tool for making sense of data. What does benchmarking mean for a home builder, and how do you think it can help their business decisions?
Yeah, so benchmarking for a home builder is really just kind of trying to leverage this idea of comparability to your peers, your competitors in a market area. And so, fundamentally, what we're doing with benchmarking is leveraging a lot of that standardization work that we've done internally to make sure that we can provide comparables back to builders so that they can look at things like costs, cost structures, individual cost categories, sales metrics, and then things like cycle time as well.
Right.
That's important, and that's probably a really good lead into BuilderMetrix, which, for those who don't know, is a brand new solution from Constellation HomeBuilder Systems that lets builders access the industry's most accurate and timely data. Seamus, what can you tell our listeners about BuilderMetrix?
Yeah, so BuilderMetrix is our data platform right now that fundamentally, going back to that notion of standardization and normalization, is a data model that looks across the industry and captures all of the core data components that builders care about to drive the reporting and analytics to help them kind of keep their finger on the pulse of their business. And so what that means is we're able to take all of that messy ERP data that you need to use for your reporting and analytics, and we can standardize it into our data model. And we're able to provide that back both at kind of a raw data capacity, but also in the form of those kind of core reports that we spoke about earlier. So looking at Power BI dashboards and a number of different ways to consume it. We also have the really exciting opportunity to leverage some external data sets with BuilderMetrix as well. We have an integration with Constellation One that allows us to leverage their standardized and aggregated MLS data to provide builders access to a lot of the data they're using for their CMAs, or just looking at to kind of figure out what's happening on the sales side of things in their market too. And the other kind of external data set that we're providing, as we've alluded to earlier, are a lot of benchmarks, which are really exciting to be able to provide back to builders to give them insight into how they're performing relative to some of their peers, their competitors in a market area. So this includes things like framing costs on a per square foot basis, plumbing costs, electrical costs, a number of different cost categories. We're building cycle time benchmarks as well. So there's a lot to it for sure. We start with the internal data first and foremost to provide back to managers so that you can leverage your own data set. But we also have the capability to bring in those external data sets. So what we like to say is we're really trying to provide builders with kind of a one-stop shop data model that they can leverage to understand what's happening in their market and help them make the best decisions possible, and at a time that it's really necessary with what's happened with the pricing and then all of the pressures that builders are facing on the back of COVID and increased interest rates and just kind of market volatility generally.
Absolutely. It really is such an important tool and such a fascinating one to look at and learn from as well. You touched on it briefly there, but do you want to maybe just give a few more examples of the kind of data and reports available through BuilderMetrix and how they're designed to benefit home builders?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll focus a little bit more on some of the internal kind of data sets that we're building with BuilderMetrix. But going back to the idea that this is all standardized ERP data, what we're doing is we're kind of looking at, again, those fundamental data components that builders are all going to have, irrespective of whether on different systems. So looking at the fact that every builder is going to have a company, they're going to have projects, and they're going to have lots underneath that. And we're building data sets that both connect to that hierarchy and then provide those job level metrics that managers are going to look at every Monday or Wednesday to see what's happening in their business. So what that looks like is creating data sets like sales, starts, deliveries, or closings, however you want to phrase it. So you can see how each project is doing from a project level. But then if you want to drill down to the detail level, you can access all of those unit level data points about when the home was closed, when construction started, when construction ended, how much you sold the home for on an aggregate basis, but also including the options, the lot premium, and any incentives that you may have attached to the lot as well. We're also looking at data sets like job gross margin. So we're building things like that. And then a lot of construction milestone data sets as well. So you can really understand how you're performing on a cycle time basis throughout the building of the home. Every builder wants to avoid those kind of dead days on the schedule. And so we have a lot of data sets that help builders identify some of those pain points. There are quite a few though, so that's absolutely not an exhaustive list. But I think those are ones that we're excited about and a lot of builders are paying attention to.
Amazing.
Awesome, Seamus. The people want to know, is BuilderMetrix only available for builders that are on Constellation ERP platforms, or are they also available for builders that might be using other solutions out in the marketplace?
Yeah, absolutely. And I alluded to this a little bit earlier. We have the privilege of being able to look at a bunch of systems internally across the board, but we also are very privileged as an organization to have access to people who have worked with several external ERP systems. And we really wanted to be strategic with how we set BuilderMetrix up so that we focused on not an individual system, but rather capturing those core data components. And I think this is a long way to say that we've spent a lot of time making sure that this model is system agnostic so that it does not have to be a Constellation ERP system to be able to be plugged into BuilderMetrix specifically. We can tailor the ETL process to other ERP systems because fundamentally it's a home building data platform, and that's what we focused on creating.
No, that's great. Definitely important, given that we can sort of cater to everyone in the marketplace. Putting you on the spot here, Seamus, but at a high level, what are builders that have begun using BuilderMetrix telling you, what it has meant for their business? I know, I'm lucky enough to speak to builders on a daily basis. Some are saying, that it's totally game changing as far as, how they make decisions and impact to their business overall. You obviously, work with builders on a daily basis. What have the, builders that are using BuilderMetrix been saying to you?
Yeah, I think we've gotten a lot of really positive feedback that we're really excited about. I think one of the biggest things that we're hearing across the board is just how much time is being saved in the actual reporting and analytics process. Going through that whole standardization of data, I think is every data analyst's dream, because they effectively will spend so much time going through that process. And so with us being able to assist a lot of the folks who are working with data with these standardized and normalized models, we're allowing them to think more critically about how they're using data internally. We're freeing them up to do the higher level value add stuff back into the business. And that's something that I think we've heard time and time again from a lot of the people that we are working with, because ultimately they were generally the people who were spending the time to clean the data, to understand how they can leverage it with reporting and analytics ultimately. Outside of that as well, I think we've heard a lot of excitement around how we're able to give builders access to data sets that they really didn't have access to before. So whether it's job cost benchmarking, there are definitely some sources of that externally as of now, but we are providing, back office ERP data sets that are incredibly timely, and builders haven't really being able to access anything like that. So we're helping them kind of see around the corner a little bit. I think it's just become even more important given the context of the industry, but also the fact that home building, I guess there's probably a number of different takes here, but as somebody who didn't work in home building before, it's a complex process. You have to collaborate with a ton of people. You have to, involve a lot of external trades, and you really need to have access to a lot of information to help you make, high quality decisions. And at the end of the day, I think a lot of people who are using BuilderMetrix are really beginning to realize that. So there's been a ton of really great feedback. And I think a lot of builders are excited about the prospect of getting access to data they haven't had before. The value we're providing back to builders by saving them a lot of the really cumbersome work that's involved with cleaning their data specifically. And I think that has been something that our customers have really appreciated.
Definitely, and that's really exciting to hear. And I do want to mention, for those listening, I'm really fortunate to work closely with Seamus on publishing BuilderMetrix Monthly Insights. It's a free monthly summary of the industry's key trends and benchmarks for both Canada and the US, and it comes with important analysis straight from Seamus himself. For anyone who'd like to, you can get on that mailing list right now. Go to constellationhb.com/data and you can subscribe. It's absolutely free, and it's full of a lot of that great information that Seamus was just talking about.
No, I love getting those emails, and honestly, Seamus, I learn a lot every single month from these emails that do go out. Seamus, I know you have a lot of data to crack, so I think this is a good stopping point for us, and we'll wrap up there. Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we'll get you back on another episode soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm always really excited to have a discussion about data, and really appreciated you guys taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you so much, Seamus. As always, a very insightful discussion right there with Seamus Mulroy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We get the opportunity to see Seamus at the office here and there,
Yep.
And learn a lot from him, right? And with BuilderMetrix being such a prominent topic right now as far as managing data, one of the things that I think it came to my attention from his interview is the idea of leveraging data, right? I think everybody has data in their hands, but what do you do with that data is the more critical component of things. So I think, his comment on leveraging that data and comparing how you're doing, compared to your peers, that's so important, right? As Seamus mentioned, all builders have data, but really putting that data to use and to improve their overall processes is the ultimate goal. And happy to see the advanced work that Seamus and our data team is providing to all of our business building partners.
Certainly, and like you said, I'm used to picking Seamus's brain whenever I can, but it was great to get such a detailed conversation with him. He's a busy guy, so it was nice to have him just here for us to talk to for a little bit. And I think what he said, almost on a more personal level, about interest rates in Canada and where we are and what that's has the impact to do to the home sales market and the new home sales index over the next few months and into the summer and fall and perhaps a future rate cut is going to be something really fascinating to watch. And that's something that is so important about the work they do, is the access it gives to really timely home building data. And with the monthly insights that we work with Seamus to put out, we're going to get a good sense pretty soon on what impact that's having on the home sales market as a whole and on home builders in Canada before long. So I'm looking forward just to being able to keep monitoring with the help of Seamus's data.
Agreed. And definitely things hopefully trending in the right direction. With this being the first cut, hopefully more to come, because I think in about a year and a half I have my mortgage renewal. So hopefully by then there's a few more cuts in between.
Well, let's certainly hope, Brian. Well, thank you all for joining us today here on the Power to Build show. This podcast is all about driving conversation about home building and innovation. So let's make sure it doesn't stop here. Follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, or X, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And please visit our website, constellationhb.com, for many, many more great home builder resources.
Yeah, and if any of you have feedback for our show or perhaps a future topic for us to speak on, please email us at podcast@constellationhb.com. We would love to hear from all of you. And if you do enjoy the show, don't forget to subscribe on our favorite podcast service, and please leave us a like and review.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone.